Okay, I am really, really happy to be sitting across from you because you've been in my orbit for a number of years now. And you, my darling Claire Baker, were the very first introduction to me in tracking my cycle. And you also were a pioneer, especially for me, in really tuning into what day of my cycle I was and making that part of my daily like dialogue and conversation, especially with my girlfriends and with my husband as well, because it's just enabled me to really understand my rhythms and my flows and my energy and when I'm at my best with certain things and when I need to pull back and rest on other parts of my cycle as well. And so I just really want to thank you for that because I know that you've changed my life and you've changed a whole lot of women's lives. And one thing that you really taught that I haven't seen many other cycle coaches teaching is about transition days in our cycle. And I really would love to start there because back in the day when you used to share your cycle days on Instagram stories, still one of my most favorite things anyone has ever done on their Instagram stories, you used to do check-ins with us and be like, what day of your cycle are you at, love? And so I want to share with you, I'm on cycle day 2, and I would love to ask if what day of your cycle you're on, and if we can start with talking about transition days in our cycle and just kind of flow from there, no pun intended.
Very good. Very good. Well, it's an honor to be with you on your day 2 on your bleed. So yeah, it's lovely to sit across from you, Sonia, after all these years of connecting. I'm actually, oh, you could say I'm on cycle day 33 right now because my last period was 33 days ago. But you've caught me at a very interesting time in my life where I'm actually on hormonal suppression at the moment. And it's the intention for being on hormonal suppression is to calm down inflammation from endometriosis in order to improve IVF outcomes. So there's a few different things going on in my body
Wow.
right now. And so that's where I am. So technically, you could say I'm on cycle day 33, but I haven't ovulated. That's so it's not quite right. So I'm kind of in like a hormonal menopause almost, or like a perpetual spring where ovulation's never going to come, at least for the next couple of months.
Yeah, isn't that just so wild? That's so interesting and so incredible that if you were to be on your cycle, your usual cycle, you would be day 33 because my last cycle was 33 days. I
Ah,
love little synchronicities like that.
uh-huh.
It's just so interesting. And, you know, I do want to talk about transition days in our cycle, but like what you just touched upon there is you are going through a huge transition yourself right now in your state of being, in your state of body, in your health, in your menstrual cycle, in wanting to conceive. And I mean, that's like not the only thing you've navigated in the last year, especially as someone who is very in deep adoration of you and have been for many years. I am, very connected to you, especially on Substack. I love your Substack so much. And I know you took quite the step away from Instagram and like really, let's be honest, who could blame you? And I love that you took the conversation somewhere else that feels even more intimate and even more sacred. And you've shared quite a bit of what you've journeyed through this past year. And if I was to ask you to give a little synopsis to anyone who hasn't been following along as closely as me, about what's transpired in. So, what have you been up to this past year, Claire? What's happened in your life? Can you give them a nice little like overview of
Yeah, sure. Let me try and be really succinct. So, I have been living in the UK. Well, I was living in the UK. I'm Australian, but I've been living in the UK since 2016. I met my husband there, got married, house, the works. And for reasons I won't into now, we separated 2 years ago. And I feel like I'm still in this divorce portal, to be honest. And I think that's one thing I will say about transitions is that they take so much longer then you often expect that they will. The
Almost
reality
always,
is like
almost always
always
longer.
so much longer. Like I'm still in it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And after we separated, I moved to Oxford. I left London and moved to Oxford, spent a year in Oxford, which was amazing, and then made the decision to come back to Australia after nearly 10 years of being away. So moved continents, which is, yeah, a big change and a big transition. And it's been really interesting coming home this year. And my now partner and I have spent a lot of time on the road. So we traveled through Guatemala and Central America. We came through India and have spent most of this year traveling around different parts of Australia and showing him, he's English, so showing him more of the country, connecting with friends and family. So that's been a big change, a big change. And then in amidst all of that, I have been navigating on and off period pain for years and years and years. And all of the natural approaches that I've taken had kind of reached the end of their limit. I've been able to manage it through health and lifestyle modifications for a really long time, but it sort of gotten to the point where I was like, now I think we need some more intervention. So I had a laparoscopy back in May, which is a keyhole surgery to diagnose and potentially treat endo, which found a lot of endometriosis. That then kind of catapulted me into IVF. And my now partner and I have been trying for a number of months without success. And so, yeah, I've been on the IVF path for a few months now, which is why I'm also experimenting with this hormonal suppression at the moment to see how that goes in treating the endo as well as potential IVF outcome. So in the last couple of years, life has like really transformed and like flipped on its head massively. And so yeah, there's been some really big identity shifts, continent shifts, health stuff, relationship stuff, like everything. Actually, not everything. A lot of things have come up for questioning. And yeah, like I said, this transition it keeps going. I keep thinking, am I at the other side of it now?
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
It keeps going. I keep thinking, am I at the other side of it now? Like, am I settling? Am I coming out the other side? I can't, like, I think I honestly am. I think we are, but like, I'm also really prepared to acknowledge that like, I'm probably not. There's probably more to come.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is something that I was saying to you before we started hitting record, is that I have been the theme of transitions, which I'm so excited to be talking to you about, especially, has just been coming up for me so much lately. And this year in itself has just felt like one transition after another, just like relentless, constant change. And shifting and, stripping away and unraveling and, burning down and dismantling and trying to figure out, okay, what's next? What's the next new start? And one of my beautiful friends, I've just been seeing the number 8 everywhere, especially in the last 24 hours, and really tuning into the energy of this conversation we are having, and we were about to have. And I was just seeing number 8s everywhere. And I shared this with my friend because I was just having an absolute verbal download with her yesterday. Like, she was my go-to gal yesterday. I was just like, cycle day 1, here's every unhinged thought I'm having today. And she was so beautiful. She came back and she said, the number 8 actually reminds me so much of the infinity symbol. And she said she looked up the definition of infinity, and the part that really resonated was what ends is the beginning of something else. And when we tune into life, the reality and the truth of it is, I think we're always navigating some kind of transition. It could be like you said, you've been navigating multiple transitions all at once in several different areas of your life, but not every single area of your life, right? And I feel like this is true for everybody. There might be several aspects of someone's life that's rock steady and really solid, but there might be one that is going through a huge upheaval and transition and change. Or it could be like you and I navigating several things at once. And I just think, like, maybe there is some sort of peace or solace to be found in the fact that this never ends for as long as we're alive. that
Yeah.
we're not going crazy for going, oh my God, this again, or something else. Oh my God, another change? Fucking seriously? Do you think?
Yeah, really. Yeah, I do. I totally agree with you. And I actually came across one of my favorite poets is the poet David White. Do you know his work?
Not super familiar.
Oh my gosh, I think you would really like his work.
Okay.
Anyway, there's an
Adding to the reading
essay, a
list.
series of, yeah, I do. There's a series of essays that he wrote in his consolation series, which is like, consoling someone who's going through grief or some kind of loss. And there's this sentence that I would really love to share. It goes, our human essence lies not in arrival, but in being almost there. We are creatures who are on the way, our journey, a series of impending, anticipated arrivals. And I just think that sums it up. Like,
Oh my
I
God,
think
that's literally
we,
just made me cry. Cycle data over here, like super emotional.
yeah,
But
right.
oh my God, that always happens to me when I'm hit with a lightning bolt of truth.
Yeah.
Mm,
I have tingles down my arms. Yeah, like creatures who are on the way, these anticipated arrivals. And I think that we can, like, it's easy to accept what you've just said. Like, we're always in a state of transition and we're always, like moving through something. Um, and there's a part of me that kind of wants to accept that in order to then feel like I've arrived. Like, I still want the arrival.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I
I don't
still
think that
want
ever goes away, right?
totally. But like, that's the whole point. Like, that's, in David White's words, like, that's the human essence. The human essence is that, like, I'm getting close. I'm nearly there. Like how I just described to you, I think I'm coming out of it now. And I think I'm settling into my, inverted commas, new life. But the truth is, like, I've been in my life this entire time. Like, my life is, it's happened, it's happening, it's now, and it will continue to be that way. And we also never know what's around the corner, right? Like, we really love to think that we have so much control, and in fact, who knows what's going to appear in our life tomorrow.
Absolutely. It's very much a case of it's happened, it's happening, and it's going to happen all at once. Like it's all of that is true all at the same time, which, can blow your mind on certain days of your cycle, like for me today, where I just burst into tears hearing a line from a poem. But, just on that, I do want to come back to your teaching for a moment because, oh gosh, it's had a huge, profound effect on my life as someone who has been off any kind of synthetic contraception for 12 years now. And you have really helped me track my cycle, not just track my cycle, but understand it and fall in love with it. And me being me, I appreciate, the big theories that everybody likes to latch onto, the big, easy, nice, clean, succinct, theories or philosophies or whatever. Like the masses like to latch onto that, and that's cool, that makes sense. And cliches are true for a reason. Like cliches are so popular for a reason because usually they're true. But for me, being me, I kind of like to, I'm very curious and I like to dig a little deeper. And I've always been really fascinated with your take on the transition days of our cycle, and I was wondering if you could first of all just sort of explain what they are, like which points of our cycle they are, and then why do they? Because I tend to feel those more deeply than being like at the height of my ovulation or, like in the depths of my luteal or whatever. I actually really feel those transition days quite strongly. And back when my cycle was very much like clockwork, my last two have not been. But before that, it was like 27, 28 days. And I always knew there were these certain days in my cycle. I was like, oh, I'm feeling the feels. I must be in a transition point. Yeah, I was wondering if you could explain them a little bit for us and then
Mm.
how we can really sort of nurture and love ourselves through those points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something I love about menstrual cycle awareness is that it just schools us in like how to live our lives. So we've just discussed like big life transitions, but having a menstrual cycle means that you get a chance to experiment with different ways of caring for yourself through transitions throughout the month, and you can then apply that same wisdom to your life, which I just love. So the concept of what Red School, which is a menstruality teaching school who I studied with years ago, they call crossover days. And so I've sort of taken that idea, and it's similar in some ways, this idea of these transitions. And these crossover days in our menstrual cycle are where we move from one of the 4 phases into another. And the way that Red School teach it, and the way that
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
to another. And the way that Red School teach it, and the way that I quite like to teach it as well, is that we're talking about the inner seasons of the menstrual cycle here. Yeah, so the inner seasons of the menstrual cycle are a little bit different to what we might like biologically look at in the menstrual cycle. So if we were looking at it very scientifically, we might say like these are the days of menstruation, this is the follicular phase, this is ovulation, and then this is the luteal phase. But the inner seasons of the cycle kind of invite us to feel more into like our own energetic experience with those phases. So how does it feel when you're menstruating and you're in that inner winter? When do you feel like you come out of that into an inner spring as the follicular phase begins? So it actually can vary from woman to woman, like when you feel like those transitions are happening. So while it might be, it might be easy for me to say cycle day 5, for example, is always the transition day from your inner winter to your inner spring. The reality is that everyone is a little bit different, right? So you actually need to kind of feel into like when those days are for you, but there is often like similarities. And so that like transition day between the inner winter and the inner spring, you might notice as bleeding begins to stop, this sort of feeling of wanting to come back out into the world. So while you may be more like inward focus in your menstrual phase while you've been in that inner winter, then suddenly there's this like, oh, I wonder like what my friends are up to, or perhaps I might jump on like social media and start sharing again. That can kind of be this, or a feeling of more resilience, or just a curiosity about the world that kicks in. So that can kind of be that inner winter to inner spring crossover. Inner spring to inner summer is really about really wanting to be seen and really wanting to be out in the world and feeling like, here I am, like what's going on, like I'm here. And there's that often sense of like confidence and resilience that can come through. Inner spring to inner autumn, as we move into the luteal phase, then again, there's this kind of closing. There's this sense of like, right, actually now what am I going to say no to? I've been saying yes for the last couple of phases, and now I'm like, let's come back into myself, reflect on how this last cycle has been, take some time out. And then that separation phase, which is what that autumn to winter transition is, so then we begin to bleed. For some people, like some women, that lands right on day 1. For others, it can even be, a few days before. So this is what I mean when I say it can vary, but there really will be that feeling of just wanting to like disconnect and just fully let go and surrender and just be with your experience. So that's a very quick summary, but that essentially like kind of paints a picture of how those transition days appear. And then how do we take care of ourselves? In traditional Chinese medicine, we talk about there's different elements associated with each phase. And what I really find interesting is that the earth element, while it's associated often with autumn in general, it's also associated with transition phases, because they talk about this as well with seasons. And the earth element is the one that we sort of have to keep coming back to in every transition, that grounding force. So I really like to think that if you are somebody that notices those transition days and you feel them, just think earth grounding, really coming back into like the basics, making sure you're drinking enough water. Are you eating regularly? And are you eating enough? Getting enough sleep, moving your body, like all of those absolute like self-care 101s are really, really important. And I also think tuning into the phase that you're coming out of, like what are you leaving behind? What have you learned from this phase that you've been in? What's that season been about? And then what are you moving into? Like, who are you becoming in this new season? What's alive for you? And doing some reflecting and some letting go, and then setting some intentions for the new season. And again, this logic, I believe, applies to greater life transitions as well. So like, what season have you been in? What season are you moving into? And how can like what you know about yourself and what you know about what is it like for you, that spring to summer transition, how can you apply that same logic in the rest of your life? So I just love that.
I love that too. And I'm just wondering, like literally just now as you were saying that, I'm wondering, are we only ever in life are we only ever navigating one season at a time? Or do you think we're navigating multiple seasons at once, depending on what's happening in different areas of our lives?
Oh, it's like infinite concentric circles of cycles. Like if you really, think about it, there's something I teach called the cycle wisdom map, and we're working with all of these different cycles all of the time. I mean, in nature, we have the lunar cycle, we have the seasons, we have our own life cycle, we have the menstrual cycle, we have the creative cycles that we're in. Our relationships have cycles. There's so many, and we can map them out, and see where we're at different points in life. And I just geek out on that stuff. I love it. So I do think we're always in different seasons. And so it can be helpful to think, well, what season am I in this creative project? Okay, great. Where am I going? Cool. What season am I in my relationship right now? How about in the greater life cycle that I'm in? And then there's cycles within cycles. So if you know that you're somebody who's moving through perimenopause, for example, we can talk about that as being like a summer to autumn transition. But then even within that perimenopause cycle, then there might be more cycles that, again, you're moving through as well. And yeah, I love that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It can blow your mind in a really good way and in a really overwhelming way. I think if you have an awareness of it, it does sort of like once you kind of get over that like head exploding emoji moment, then you can really kind of be like, okay, that's cool. Once you have I always believe once you have an awareness of something, you have power because you're aware that it's existing, and then you can put your focus on it, and then you can decide what it needs, and I think that's exactly what you were touching upon then with, with regards to our menstrual cycle and with whatever cycles we're going through in the different areas and aspects of our life. And I just think that's really beautiful because, I mean, especially at a time like now when so much feels so big and heavy and like there's so much ugliness in the world. And, a lot of people are feeling like either stuck or hopeless or, there are some days where we wonder like, what's the point? I think this is definitely something that we can come back to kind of just bring us back into ourselves. Like you said, coming back to earth, coming back to the grounding, all of that. And also just like there's such beauty in what you teach and what you've just spoken about as well. And ultimately, like life is ultimately beautiful. Like there is so much beauty still to be appreciated, I think, especially at a time like now, in the current state of the world. And I know that's going to vary wildly.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
The current state of the world. And I know that's going to vary wildly depending on where you live in the world. But yeah, like just navigating all the things that you've navigated through yourself these past 2 years, what would you say have really been like your foundations, your fundamentals that when shit has felt like it's been hitting the fan, or when you're like, when is this going to end? When am I coming out the other side of this? Like, what have been the absolute core essentials that you will carry around in your toolkit forever and ever, amen, that have
Yeah.
helped always?
I think the first very practical thing is definitely practicing menstrual cycle awareness. So having that, I call it like a handrail through my days and through life. It gives me an opportunity every day to do what we did at the beginning, to check in and say, cool, what day am I on today? How's my energy? What's my capacity like? Like, do I feel I'm in a yes phase and I want to give and share? Or am I like, no, actually, I need to cocoon a little bit more today and take care of myself, set some boundaries, right? So I really do think that, yes, it can be overwhelming when we begin to think about all of these cycles. We don't actually even need to know what they all are. Really, what we can just come back to is, cool, where am I at today? Like, what's happening for me today? What's alive and what's present? So I love my menstrual cycle awareness practice in big life transitions. I feel like I really go like all in on it then. And also bleeding, like having that opportunity to menstruate once a month, which is where I generally take time out and I rest and like have a look at what's working in my life and what isn't. I set some goals for the next month. Like I just have a bit of a reset, and having that, like having those timeouts. And if you're not menstruating right now, like I said, I'm actually not for the next couple of months. I'm making sure that I'm building in that reflection time in my life in other ways, because it's really important that we just like take a moment to breathe and figure out, cool, how am I doing really? I would also say, again, reiterating what I said earlier, like the absolute basics, like sleep has to be the top of my priority list. If I'm not sleeping well, I'm shot. So I need sleep to be really rock solid. I eat really regularly and try and eat well, because that often goes when I'm stressed. Like I am someone who does forget to eat, so I have to be really on it with food. And then walking, like just getting out and clearing my head for 30 minutes or so every day, and staying hydrated. Like it's so boring, those self-care basics, because it's not a fancy gadget or a device or even spending much money, but it's like if they're gone, then I struggle really to do anything else. And then the other thing I would say is that I've had to massively adjust my expectations for myself over the past couple of years. And specifically around work, I just have not had the same capacity to produce and to meet other people's expectations and to collaborate in the same way that I have before. And that's been really hard, actually, to do that, to actually have to say no to a lot of things. I had a period where I had to refund people. I've never had to do that ever before, and thankfully I haven't had to do it again. But it was a real like facing myself moment of acknowledging that I'm in a phase of life right now that my capacity is way down, because I'm having to take care of so many other things. And so that was a huge learning moment for me. And like as we've said, transitions are happening all of the time, but I think it's important to say some are definitely more demanding than others.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
honor that,
Yeah.
honor the like intensity of it if it's there.
Absolutely. And I was just listening to a podcast episode yesterday talking about, the standards we hold for ourselves and the expectations we have. And at one point she was talking very much to like one of her strategies is like gently, gently. And that really spoke to me, because what you were just saying just then, when you have to face a reality that is not one that you actually want for yourself, or maybe one that has been forced upon you, like you haven't chosen it. Like me, I was made redundant from my full-time corporate job. I didn't choose that for myself. And it forced me to be thrust into a very different reality than I thought I was going to be standing in the middle of in 2025. And honestly, the only way I've been able to get through is through bucket loads of love and compassion and grace and kindness for myself that I can very easily give to others, but I struggle to give to myself, and I struggle even more to receive from others. And that has been probably one of my biggest lessons and learnings, and I suppose gifts this
Yeah.
year. It's,
Mm.
yeah, it's massive. And I just think adjusting your expectations of yourself and having to shift the goalposts. We talk so much about shifting goalposts as in aiming higher, as in like, oh, now you've achieved that, you should strive for more. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? We live in such a culture of what's the next thing. Sometimes you have to shift the goalpost back a bit, or you have to
Yeah.
like lower the bar a bit, because that's not going to serve you. It's actually just going to like stress you out and make things worse. And in a lot of cases, like in mine, like some of them are just not achievable because they're just not within my reach. They're not within my power right now. Um, and I think that in itself is just I mean, that's a lesson in transitioning, and also a lesson in like really fucking loving yourself through those times as well, when things aren't so shiny, when they're not so glossy, you know?
Mm.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
oh,
absolutely. And
oh. Did you just
Yeah,
see me just collapse into my chair like, whoa?
totally. And that's
Yeah.
how it feels,
Mm.
And I think, you and I and I'm sure many of the women listening are creative, ambitious, growth focused, like really want to live like a meaningful life. And like that, often compels us to always be looking forward. And I would say this was the first time in my life that those goalposts had to come back. I think they've always been going forward, actually. And I think this was I've been through a lot of loss and grief in my life, but this was the first time that I really felt like, oh, I actually can't expand to meet this. Actually, what I need to do is kind of spiral a little and come back in. And yeah, not easy,
Not
but
easy,
important.
important and
Yeah.
essential, that's for sure. Something I would really love to ask you, because for you, I mean, I could talk 1,000 topics with you. Um, but one thing I really love to ask women in particular, so other women can hear their answers, is because I feel like we all need our own form of self-expression, like something that is like truly ours, whether that is like
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
like something that is like truly ours, whether that is like art or writing or exercising or whatever it is, just to give to ourselves so that we are putting those deposits of fuel in our tank so that we can be who we are, and we can also play the roles we need to play in our life to others as well. And so I would love to know, like, what is the one thing that is just so beautifully yours that when you do it for yourself, you feel like the most Claire version of Claire that ever Claired. So then you can be beautiful, sparkly, glorious Claire to everybody else who connects with you.
Yeah. It's funny, I haven't even mentioned this until now. Like when I was going through the separation with my ex-husband, I sat down and had this like soul conversation with myself one day, and I was just like, what do I need to know? And the answer was just so clear. It was just like, you just need to write. Like you just need to write, woman, just write. And I'd not been writing for a few years. I blogged back in the day, and I just love writing. I've journaled since I was like as soon as I could. Um, but I had been moving through so much personally with him that I knew that I had sort of shut down that creative expression. And I think I needed to. There are times when I think we need to protect ourselves a bit more. And I was just in that kind of phase of life. So yeah, last year when I started my Substack, oh my God, like it was incredible. Like I had such little capacity for so many other things in my business. I like had to reduce my team. I had to really like streamline my offerings, but I had the energy to write, I still had the desire and the energy and the need. Honestly, it got to the point that I was like, I actually just need to do this because this is going to help me, like you say, feel like myself, feel like my like most sparkly version of myself. And oh my God, it gave me so much last year. Like I knew that if I got to the end of 2024 and that all I had done in my business was publish regularly on my Substack, then I would be happy. It didn't matter what any of my other metrics were. And I did it and have continued to do it this year. And yeah, like you said earlier, I've stepped away a bit from social media and spent more time writing. And yeah, writing has just been it is that practice for me. It's that creative outlet, but it keeps me sane. It keeps me connected. It keeps me feeling like myself. And yeah, I'm so grateful for that. So I would add that to my list of things to do when I'm personally going through a big transition. Is I have to remember to keep doing that because sometimes I resist it, and it doesn't serve me.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. For me, writing is my life force. It's my lifeblood.
Mm-hmm.
It's what keeps me alive. It's what makes me me. Yeah.
Mm.
And I write to make sense of myself, and I write to make sense of my life. And if that happens to help somebody else, that's my impact doubled. And I'm like thrilled with that. That's me being of service to the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that.
We share that.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got that very much in common amongst other things. Okay, so I just want to ask you one last question, if you'll be so kind and generous. This little series of mine, which I keep getting told to stop saying the word little, because I tell my clients all the time, don't ever undermine what you're doing. It's not little, it's amazing. This series of mine is called the Creatress tapes. And I'm obsessed with the word creatress because I believe that every woman is a creatress. There's something that it's like a spark that exists within her that she is to tap into and create something in her lifetime, whether it's a family or whether it's a community or whether it's a business or some creative venture or whatever it is, we're all creatresses. And so if you were going to give one piece of advice to the woman listening right now who wants to tap into her inner creatress, what would you most want to say to her?
Yeah, there's something that's coming up for me around just taking time, just really taking time with yourself. I think that life is for sure about our relationships with other people. I really do believe that, but that also includes our relationship with us, with ourselves. And I think women are so good at nurturing others and connecting and weaving, and we shouldn't stop doing that. But I think we to listen to that spark and to give it space and time to grow and to really hear what it has to say, our gender out of the picture, then I do actually think we need some time. We need some time with ourselves. And I'm not going to specify what that should look like because everybody's reality is different. But to just notice when I say that, like what comes up for you when you think about really having some time with yourself, and then just see if you can follow that thread.
I love that. That's so perfect. Yeah, that's such beautiful advice and so appropriate because I am such an oracle card fiend, for want of a better word. I love my oracle decks because they get me out of my head and they get me out of my own way when I'm trying to tap into my own inner wisdom sometimes when I can't access it myself. And I just got a brand new deck that arrived yesterday and it's from one of my most favorite people in the world, Rebecca Campbell. And it's her newest oracle deck called the Inner Temple Oracle. And the very first card that I pulled is Create Some Space. And that card, when I opened up the guidebook to find where it was, page 88. You cannot make this shit up if you try, honestly. It is like the synchronous, like sometimes I feel like the universe is just sitting back and laughing at me because it's just, they're like, haha, bitch, another sign.
So good. So good. You know, I also really think that when it's your birthday, and we both had a birthday in this last week, I think that there is just an extra magic in the air as well, right? Like I think these synchronicities and these little like, winks always feel like they're more abundant.
For sure. It's definitely, birthdays are definitely like walking through a portal. And yeah, there's a lot of magic in the air and a lot of messages and signs and symbols and yet another transition. So I just want to thank you so much for your time. You are so, I will gush over you forever because I just adore you and your work so very much and what you share of yourself on your Substack as well. If anyone is on Substack, they must be following The Periodical by Claire Baker because honestly, when I have been going through this big career transition and I've had to make a lot of financial changes within my budget, I chose to cut a lot of subscriptions because, I love supporting other people's work, especially writers, because I think we deserve to be paid for our art. And yours is the only one I did not cancel.
Oh, that's
which is
kind.
my way of saying, please don't stop writing. Please keep writing.
Thank you. That is such a beautiful, that's so lovely. I'm really honored. That's gorgeous.
Thank you so much for being on the Creatress tape.
I've loved it. Thanks for having me.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai